In its latest policy pitch, the Conservative Party is vowing to crack down on repeat offenders with a 3 strikes law. Pierre Poilievre says if elected, he would seek to pass a law that would mean anyone convicted of 3 serious offenses would be jailed for a minimum of 10 years, and there would be no eligibility for parole.
Only a new Conservative government will give repeat violent criminals jail, not bail, and keep the worst offenders off our streets behind bars. Only a new Conservative government will stop the crime for a change. In addition to 3 strikes and you're out, we will bring life sentences for human traffickers, for gun smugglers, and for mass fentanyl producers.
All right, let's get some analysis on this. Michael Spratt is a criminal defense lawyer and a partner at AGP, and we reached him today in Ottawa. Now, Michael, you know that a 3 strikes slogan is very appealing to a lot of people, and jail, not bail is equally appealing. What's your perspective?
Well, we sort of have the preview of where this will all end up. We've seen 3 strikes proposals and laws in the United States, and they simply don't make our communities safer. In fact, they in times have made our communities less safe. And of course, if Mr. Poilievre wants to move forward with this policy, he's going to have to shred the charter to do so.
So the people who support this, I'm sure, are maybe yelling, at least, talking to the TV right now and saying, of course it makes society safer. If you've been caught and convicted of a 3rd serious crime and you go to jail, no questions asked, for 10 years, how does that not make us safer?
Well, most people caught and convicted of a 3rd serious violent crime do receive lengthy jail sentences in Canada. The problem is when you have this one-size-fits-all solution, it can lead to some big problems. First, it does offend the charter. We know that minimum sentences are unconstitutional. And so Mr. Poilievre will have to use a notwithstanding clause. There are some laws that can be close to the line that can go either way. This is not one of those laws. This will be found to be unconstitutional. But more importantly, if you're worried about community safety, you have to look at what has happened in other jurisdictions that have similar laws and what they have found. And what studies and what the empirical evidence shows is that when someone is facing a 3rd strike and they're at risk of being apprehended, they will resort to extreme measures to avoid apprehension. And so that's why we've seen in many United States jurisdictions with similar laws that these types of sort of one-size-fits-all solution leads to actually an increase in homicides, an increase in violence, an increase in violence towards police officers. And I'm sure that's not what Mr. Poilievre wants.
Yeah, so that's really interesting because you're saying that the data is clear on that. I mean, we do have kind of this living laboratory of many, or at least some U.S. jurisdictions that brought in the 3 strikes law because they were frustrated with crime, because they were, they wanted judges to be tougher. And so you're saying the data has shown some pretty serious unintended consequences.
That's right. I mean, people are right to be concerned about crime and community safety. But what we know and what people intuitively know is that, crime, community safety, the criminal justice system, these are very complicated issues. They deal with mental health and addiction and deterrence and, complicated issues need nuanced solutions. And, sloganeering and, pandering to a community sphere to score political points, that's not a nuanced solution. It's not going to be effective. And it's sort of an admission that you're out of ideas. And it's an admission of, failure before you've even started.
Michael, you see this so vividly in the criminal courts, but many of us in Canada see what I'm about to describe on the streets, certainly in Vancouver, which is people who do seem to pose a risk to others. And we have had some high-profile cases in Vancouver of innocent bystanders on the sidewalk getting punched without warning, getting stabbed. There have been some pretty terrible stories. So what do we do about it? If not 3 strikes, how do we respond?
Well, you have to first acknowledge that if you're using this 3 strikes and you're out sort of rule, the harm's already been done to the victim of that crime. And sending someone to jail, who, may not necessarily need to be in jail for the rest of their lives isn't going to repair that harm. The criminal justice system is a really blunt tool. especially when we're dealing with mental health and addiction issues. What we know is that this sort of, harsh sentencing and one-size-fits-all sentencing doesn't deter crime. No one looks at sort of these sorts of rules and says, well, I'm not going to commit a crime then because I could go to jail for the rest of my life. And so we have to look at the things that actually stop crime in the first place instead of just throwing up our hands and admitting defeat after the crime's been done. And that means that we need to support people, take care of one another, have mental health resources, have addiction counseling, and, sort of not go down this sort of Trumpian sort of tough on crime rhetoric that has already proved a failure south of the border.
Really interesting hearing your perspective, Michael. Thank you for speaking with us.
No problem, anytime.
Michael Spratt, a criminal defense lawyer and a partner at AGP.